Y'all think you know country music? You might not know this. Part 107. This man right here did a whole lot more than just be responsible for the great gremlin outbreak of 1984. He was much more than a man that made bad inventions with good intentions. He was also a music legend and a songwriting genius. This is Hoy Axton. He was born in Duncan, Oklahoma on March 25th, 1938. His mama was May Boren Axton. She taught English and journalism all throughout Oklahoma at different schools. His daddy was John Thomas Axton. He was a naval officer stationed at Jacksonville, Florida. The family would move from Oklahoma to join him in 1949 in Jacksonville. Now, back in the mid-50s, May became associated with some folks in the music business, namely Fred Rose, who famously signed Hank Williams. She also started writing songs. She had some of her songs recorded by artists like Perry Como and Ernest Tubb. She also introduced a 19-year-old Elvis Presley to Colonel Tom Parker at a show in Jacksonville, Florida. And then she tried everything she could do to get RCA Victor's Nashville division label head, Stephen H. Scholes, to sign Elvis, which he eventually did. And then she would work with Bob Neal to help promote Elvis. But then in 1955, songwriter and steel guitarist Tommy Durden told May about a newspaper article that he had read, in which criminal and painter Alvin Kralik had committed suicide with a note in his pocket that simply said, "I walk a lonely street." So May said, well, why don't we put a Heartbreak hotel at the end of that lonely street? So they did.
And I was in the kitchen making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while Mom was writing that song. A friend of hers came by the house, a musician, and he had a newspaper clipping about a fellow who'd committed suicide. He had an incurable disease and decided to take that way out. But before he committed suicide, he took all of the labels identifying marks out of his clothing. All he had in his pockets was a note that said, "I walk a lonely street." And then he blew his head off with a shotgun or something. And Tommy Durden, this friend of Mom's, came in and he says, "Maybe there's something about this clipping. I don't know what it is." And Mama said, well, why don't we put a Heartbreak hotel at the end of that lonely street? They sat down in about 22 minutes at the piano and they had that song.
Wow.
And when they first wrote it, it was sort of like a Jim Reeves ballad. It was, you know, since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. That kind of thing.
Creating Elvis's very first #1 record and very first million seller, and one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time.
I was 15. I was sitting there looking out the window one day, shortly after the record was a big deal. And I saw that new car in the driveway with the air conditioning and the white walls and all that. I saw that color TV in the living room, that new roof. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. You mean you can actually make a living writing songs? So I started writing pretty steadily from that point on.
After May's mega success with Heartbreak Hotel and Elvis, she started working real close with Nashville country music artists, even as a public relations manager for artists like Hank Snow and Jim Reeves. In the meantime, Hoyt would graduate from Robert E. Lee High School in 1956. He then moved to Oklahoma and went to Oklahoma State University on a scholarship, where he played football, but he left to join the Navy. He held the rank of Petty Officer Second Class, served on the USS Princeton and the USS Ranger. Well, when he was discharged from the Navy, he started singing folk songs around Southern California in coffee shops. In the early 60s, he released his first folk album called The Balladeer. It was recorded at the Troubadour in Los Angeles. He had written a song on there called Greenback Dollar that a group called the Kingston Trio recorded in 1963. He made it a huge hit. In 1964, Hoyt had been over at his buddy's house, who was a heroin addict, but Hoyt didn't know that at the time.
I was living in a big apartment house off of Vine Street, and I had a buddy who was a junkie, a heroin addict. I didn't really know it. He was sitting in his easy chair in the living room one afternoon. I was going out somewhere, and I said, "Hey, Tom, it's time to get up, man. It's noon." And he didn't get up, so I just went on and left. And I came back about an hour later, and there's an ambulance, county ambulance, out front. And he'd been dead for a couple hours when I told him goodbye.
Wow.
And I got to thinking how stupid it was for a talented artist, he was a talented writer and musician, to blow what could be 50 years, 60 years of making good music and art for whatever high he got out of that. And I sat down and I wrote The Pusher Man.
Later, he was performing that song at the Troubadour, and John Kay heard it. John would go on to become the future lead singer of the rock band Steppenwolf. John loved this song so much, in 1967, he persuaded the group to record the song. Steppenwolf released The Pusher as a single, and it sold 1 million units. It would also be used in the cult-followed movie Easy Rider from 1969. In the late 60s, Hoyt was playing around with this song he had been writing around on that would be included on an upcoming cartoon TV special called The Happy Song. He never really finished all the words to it, but he had the melody. He wanted to try to take the melody to get to his producers to get them to record it. The producers asked him just to sing any words to the melody. So he said Jeremiah was a prophet. He was a good friend of mine. Nobody liked the prophet line, so he changed it to Jeremiah was a bullfrog to reference a drunk. Then he came up with some remaining words to it, and they demoed the song. Then in 1970, producer Richard Podolor played that demo for the rock group Three Dog Night. 2 of the members hated this goofy song, but Chuck Negron said that he thought the band needed something fun and quirky to pull them back together. So they cut this song, their 5th record, naturally. The song was called Joy to the World, and it became a smash hit in 1971. And later in 1971, their 6th album, Harmony, would include another Hoy Axton song called Never Been to Spain.
Oh, well, I've never been to Spain, but I kinda like the music. Well, the ladies are insane, and they sure know how to use it.
One of my favorites. Hoyt said he wrote this song in about 10 minutes. He was at a party and about half drunk.
10 minutes to write that song. I was at a party. I think I was about half drunk that night, and I sat down and started playing guitar and messing around with it, and came up with that melody and wrote the songs.
It's been covered by everybody you can imagine, including Elvis, as a live version in 1972. But my personal favorite versions is Hoyt's and Waylon's. And during all this time, Hoyt had also been making his own records. But in 1973, he signed with A&M Records. This would be the start of what would cement him in country music history. First entered the country music charts in 1974 with a song called When the Morning Comes, duet with Linda Ronstadt, and featuring the one and only Ralph Mooney on steel guitar. He recorded 4 more outstanding records for A&M before moving to MCA in 1977. His first MCA record was called Snowblind Friend, which was also a great record and featured another great duet, this time with one of the most unique and talented female country singers we've ever heard, Tanya Tucker, on a great song called You Taught Me How to Cry. This really should have been a hit, and it's a shame it wasn't. All through the 80s, Hoyt would continue making records, doing big commercials for McDonald's, Busch Beer, Pizza Hut, and all kinds of stuff. Some of them he was acting in the commercials, some of them he just sang the jingle or wrote the jingle. He was out there in the world. If you've never heard records such as Della and the Dealer and Bony Fingers, please go check them out. And all the while he had been making acting appearances on shows like McLeod, Bonanza, The Bionic Woman, WKRP in Cincinnati, Different Strokes. Late 70s, early 80s is when he would get some bigger roles in movies, just like The Black Stallion in 1979. And of course, Gremlins in 1984. Then in 1995, he had a stroke. This would impair his ability to get around so much, he remained in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. On October 26, 1999, Hoyt died after having his second heart attack in 2 weeks. He was at his Victor, Montana home, and he was 61 years young. His son, Matt Axton, is also a musician and a singer. Matt's doing everything he can to help keep his daddy's legacy out there. So be sure to look Matt up on social media and go follow him. He's always posting great stuff. Hoy Axton never really fit in a box. He was too much of a stylist. There's never been anybody like him. There never will be. I appreciate y'all for watching. Share it with your friends if you like this. See y'all next time.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.